welcome again to the live part of Autistic Radio. It's busy, and I'm going to quickly go through some of the different podcast streams that we have. We recorded recently with a gentleman from the United States, Scott Frazard, and we'll be putting that out shortly, and he's come back to us to say that he wants to do more with us. Scott is out there as an advocate, and he has a whole thing with YouTube and such like. But the thing that impressed me about him was how easy it was to relate to him, and I think we're going to enjoy listening to him. In-house, Raymond and Lucy have an ongoing project. We have a few recordings in the can for that, for her Lucy Auti Unmasked Substack. So they'll be appearing over the next few weeks. And an experiment we did recently. Travelling Autistic. Nicola has taken the helm there, and she has some ideas that it doesn't just have to be about wild travel all over the place. It can be just the idea of leaving the house. So we'll see what Nicola does to develop that. She has two episodes already made interviewing me where I am at the moment in India. And all in all, I can say that we've started this year in a very positive place. Just for the kind of output that supports us all. We regularly meet every Sunday for the 444 for the drop-in. Different people joining and putting a voice or putting a text together. And that feeds us into the kind of ideas that we have. And that's on top of the stalwart, the 555 with Harry. Harry's always there, and he's always producing the Facebook for us to inspire us and get the conversation flowing. The serious stuff, we're representing at an unusual venue, the UK SBA, Society for Behaviour Analysts. A controversial talk is going to be shown there by myself. I'm not going to pull any punches. I'm going to tell them how we feel. Not just how I feel, but I've been receiving via various social medias and emails some of the ideas to put to the behaviourists from the advocates that are out there that make it their task, their job, their interest to look at what behaviourism has done in the past, but more particularly whether it's adapting in the future to be appropriate for the new paradigm, the neurodiversity paradigm, which it's always been in conflict up until now. So let's get on and let's go to Harry and let's join him for the 555 proper now. Hi Harry, are you there for me?
Yes, good evening Jules, thanks very much, and good evening everyone. This is 555 Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 19th of January 2025. This is where we go through the Facebook posts. This is where we go through the Facebook posts on the page and we discuss topics that generate from them. So, the first post is from Pete Warmby, autistic author, who's an autistic and ADHD writer and speaker on autism and autistic lived experience. And what he shared is a quote. When talking or working with autistic people, don't treat our clarifying question as a challenge to your authority. They're just questions so we don't misunderstand. It's horrible to misunderstand all the time. That's it. What's people's thoughts on this?
Yeah, questions are important. I was reading something about this yesterday about how processing time takes a wee while with some of us. And so, given time, we eventually, it's not that we don't understand, but eventually we understand in our way. So asking questions is a means of, clarifying. Yeah. And it was something that was brought up by the chap from Texas we were talking to during the week about the method he uses, the Socratic method, which is the idea of asking questions, a way of revealing what is almost already known through, asking questions. So it's definitely an important thing for the autistic person to help process. What attracted you to this one, Harry?
Well, what attracted me to it was seeing it shared by Pete Warnby, who we've shared quite a lot of material from. And the reason that what it says to me, what it brings to me, is I can remember growing up, and I can remember even now, when you ask questions over and over to get it into my head, like instructions. Even though something may be simple to the person that's kind of given the instruction, like given information, I feel that I need a lot of it to be explained more than twice. And sometimes even I prefer it to be on by text, written down, so that I can read it over and over and over. But some people take offence if you ask questions over and over and over. Like a manager, for instance, like someone who thinks that they're actually helping you by giving you information. They've probably made it as simple as possible for you to follow, but you're asking questions, and it's the same question over and over, and they feel it's like a challenge to their authority, even though it's not. And although, maybe apart from school, I don't think I've had too much of that happening to me as such, but I'm aware that this happens to a lot of autistic people out there.
Yeah, it's like, you remember the wee kid? It's my microwave in the background. Do you remember the wee kid who was always asking why? They often think this is an irritating child who should be seen and not heard. But this is how you find things out. It's an exploratory nature, isn't it? But it's also when you don't fully understand your environment or other people, or you have, a difficult relationship with it, you need to ask questions. But when he says misunderstanding here, I sometimes think misunderstanding can be okay. Sometimes you can get a feel for what somebody means. You'll never truly know what they mean, but you can walk away with a sense of what they meant. A misunderstanding can sometimes lead to innovation and new perspectives and things because you got it wrong, as it were. But it's this nasty thing of having it reinforced in you that you did get something wrong according to everybody else, which can be a bit of a social pressure.
I've been thinking more about the first part, about the challenge to authority part. And I think that not valuing maybe, and not valuing in the same way, not appreciating in the same way social hierarchies is can be read really negatively when one of the examples I think of with this was I've shared before that there's a lot of autistic traits in my household, and I found it was really difficult to have any conversations about Christmas with very curious children who ask very good questions. And so I do think that there's some times where the clarifying questions are a challenge to authority, because the authority is the thing that's you're meant to be focused on, not the illogical nature of some of these rules, or perhaps some of the lies, or perhaps some of the things that you're not meant to know that a hierarchy can hide. So I do think that it can, even just from an example of I personally would have loved to be just like, there's no such thing as Christmas, it's nonsense, we're not going to do that. But I cave to peer pressure, and we do. I begrudgingly celebrate Christmas and I try and make it nice. But the questioning when they were small, I had to say, "Oh, you best ask Auntie Danny. She knows much more about that than I do," because I couldn't. I was absolutely crumbling under their interrogation.
Good move, Nicola.
Yeah, their aunt was awesome because she could do that spirit of Christmas thing. So when they were small, they believed that she was an elf, and they didn't actually hold it against her. And I don't know if they've ever stopped believing that she is also an elf. But I couldn't do it. I really, really struggled with what felt like lying, and it caused me quite a lot of stress actually. That I then had to try and cope with, like, how do I look after myself when these kids are just trying to have a nice Christmas? So I had to rely on my network.
I take it you might be interested in and curious about myth. I think sometimes we have to get into the mythology of these things and, play the part almost in the spirit of the myth. We are all tooth fairies and elves, aren't we?
I know, I just overthink it, and I just think the tooth fairies are a very disturbing fae to let into your home, in some ways, and quite wary of making deals with the fae as well. You have to be very careful.
Yeah, those tree people.
The next post is from the Kid Clinic, and it's a psychology service to provide evidence-based, collaborative and respectful psychological services to provide hope, and it's based in Burlow, North Perth, and Wyalp, Fremantle in Western Australia, and Narrum in Victoria, I think, as well. And what I've shared from them is just the promotion of an autistic women's group at the Kid Clinic. This was originally shared by someone else, that's why it's been shared. And what it says is the Kid Clinic, KIDD, the Kid Clinic is hosting an in-person group for clinically diagnosed or self-identified autistic women over the age of 18. In our therapeutic work, we have noticed there are common areas in which autistic people are seeking support and guidance. We are passionate about providing a safe group space where people can learn from and support others with shared lived experience and build connections and a sense of community. The sessions will include presentation by Dr. Miriam Kirby and Melanie Turner, followed by facilitated discussion. The 5-session group begins on Saturday the 22nd of February from 9:30am to 11am, continuing the next week and then fortnightly at our North Perth clinic. And it also provides other links for information if anybody wants one. What this is shared for is I like to share these kind of groups and services and these kind of places where people can go to and discuss about their autism and do it in a safe space as it's promoting. And just because we're a global Facebook group, a global kind of radio, it's just nice to share these things all over the world, especially English speaking world. So, what's people's thoughts on this?
I was thinking about how a good bunch of years ago, I think it was probably about 2017 or 18, that the explanation of autism kind of floated itself in my mind. And I just think how it took till last year before I got to go to the Embrace Autism group, classy group, and got so much from that. And now it just seems like there's so many more services like that available. And I feel kind of like people who are coming across like autism or like now, or are sort of understanding now, there's a lot more available than there was even like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's so, like, yeah, it's really dramatically different now, even though it's still early days.
I like the idea. Well, I was going to initially mention the women only aspect of this because I'm in a group just now and it's a mixture, and I can see the differing needs in this group that I'm currently in. So I think it would be good for women to be in, a women only space, and perhaps men too. It all depends. It's just a thought that arose there reading through this. But there's also this aspect of like identifying autism, which is brought up, I think, here. The presentation followed by facilitated discussion of common areas in which autistic people are seeking support and guidance. It's like knowing what you want and knowing what you're experiencing. And I was a wee bit suspicious at first about a lot of that because it seemed like everybody was kind of reading from a script. There'd been this kind of received knowledge of, oh, it's this and it's this and it's this. But there are things that seem to stick that are common experiences. And if you dwell on them enough, you can appreciate them. And so it's handy to be in a facilitated discussion with people who've got a wee bit more knowledge of it than yourself, or can help you discuss it.
For many years, autism was looked upon as a male only, or certainly male dominated condition, disorder, whatever was described by the medical. So, seeing a lot of these women only groups, is vital. And it's great to see that there's more and more of them because it's not before time sort of thing. Because I was just, there's been discussions before, like because of the medical model so outdated, the females that had that are autistic get missed out because of the way that the diagnosis criteria went. So a lot of these people will maybe in these groups that have actually fell through the net because of that, and people can share experience and how they feel about that, and certainly give possible advice or support or just a general conversation in a safe environment. It's always nice to see things like that happening. The next post is from Neurodiversity Manitoba. It's a mental health service. Neurodiversity affirming lived experience supports for schools, adults, families, teens, and children. And it's based in Canada. And what it's talking about is about the principles of behaviourism. And what it says is the principles of behaviourism are ubiquitous through society, especially in public education and in particular with autistic students. For more than 3 decades, experts in child development and related fields have expressed increasing concerns about the potential psychological damage caused by their use. In more recent years, researchers have shown even the most positively framed and implemented behaviour programmes may still do more harm than good. And it goes on to explain about typical buyer power and the way things are set up in schools and all sorts of things. What's people's thoughts so far?
I'm quite intrigued that they've got a photograph of the philosopher Foucault there, the man with no hair, with all the books. I was very intrigued by his idea of language as power. And of course, he also talks about biopower, which is a medicalisation of society. It's a deep subject, and I'm not really got to get into it just now because I'm still digesting a lot of it. But in this thorny issue of pro or anti-behaviourism, I think I can see the point here, because if it's the recent kind of form of behaviourism as practiced in the areas that it's practiced in, that might be a debatable subject, but behaviour is an aspect of our lives, and I wouldn't blame anybody for the behaviour. I think you have to look at other things that cause behaviour to a certain extent, or are a part of behaviour. But it is a thorny subject for getting your perspective on.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, I'm certainly feeling this the kind of similar way as well. Raymond, considering the talks and discussions that we've had, with many different people. But it's also worthwhile sharing this sort of stuff so that people can see different perspectives and people's concerns. I mean, it goes into other things like quotes, etc. But I think I'll leave it at that. I just thought it was worthwhile. This is a Canadian perspective, and it's just given it just shows you it's not just the UK, it's not just the United States and Ireland, of course. We're going to spoke to people in Ireland. It just shows you how global this is.
Yeah, ordered behaviour and discipline is worldwide, it's kind of how people are raised, isn't it? And it's like, the idea of behave yourself, or there's all these rules that paper over, I think, the reality of, common experience. But we live in these standardized arrangements of like families and that people, assume these things are all natural. And to a certain extent, they possibly are. But there are variations, and we've got to contemplate this phrase, neurodivergent.
The next post is from Laura Helfeld, Neurodivergent Nurse Consulting. And it's talking about AAC. Communication is a human right, and it's crucial that we learn about communication options and how to support AAC users in advocating for their rights to education, healthcare, relationships, social activities, and work. Please find a link to my blog in the comments that is signposting lists which will grow over time. Happy learning. AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication, which are ways people use to communicate besides talking, verbal speech. And it's just a list of, it's just a kind of resource list for people to look at. But what this also does is it kind of brings back this discussion about communication and how other people communicate differently, either by choice or not, and how people communicate and how they should be taken more seriously and be treated more respectfully than they currently are, because not speaking doesn't mean you're not competent. What's other people's thoughts?
I think this might go back to what I was saying earlier about what was I saying earlier? Whilst I try and remember that, recently I had this experience of being quite mute in sort of online discussions, and I see it as a form of communication. And what I was saying earlier was about misunderstanding, and getting a sense of what someone means. There are varying ways people can communicate, and it's not the expected ways sometimes. So I'm very curious about anything that supports different ways of communicating, and the experiences of that.
Yeah, I thought about this quite a lot. I saw this post come in during the week. I think it must have just been yesterday. I was having a look, and a memory came back to me from when I was a young nurse and seeing it was a patient being who wanted to communicate in writing, and seeing the nurses refuse to take that communication on board, be like, nope, she has to use her words, she has to speak. And it was just this awful, I remember at the time thinking, gosh, listen. This is a way that this person's trying to get their voice through, and they feel really disempowered. And now even more, like, my understanding is so much deeper. I just feel so awful that I couldn't have done more in that situation. And I do really, it really impressed upon me how poorly people can be treated when they're not able to use speech. And I think for people who sometimes can speak and not speak, that's really not understood either. I've lost the ability to speak in a few different situations, and it's really quite distressing. I did see somebody like using an app on their phone that flashed up the words quite big so that they were able to kind of communicate too. So that was my thoughts that came up for me on this post.
On the link itself, I've clicked on the link, and what Laura has done is showing a list of individuals and organisations relating to this, and saying, please do your own investigation and use your own judgment about a person or organisation. I am not responsible for information shared on the below linked pages. And some of these names are familiar. There's Danny Whitty, Gregory C. Tino, Swarat Gopalan, Sabrina Guerra, Ido Gopalan, Nico Bosvich, Ben B. My Own Words, Tiffany Nigh Functioning Autism, Tiffany Hammond Fidgets and Fries, Amy Sequenzia, Jeremy's Vision, Sarah Stop You Friends Who Types to Speak, Megan Ashburn, Not an Autism Mum, Jules Edwards, Autistic Typing, Euromess, Patrick Saunders, The Story Speller, Hat Talks, Trigger Pritchard, and organisations, families and allies of non-speaking autistic youth. We've Chat, AAC, Assistive Wear, International Association for Spelling as Communication. Ask Me, I am an AAS user, 24 Rule. Spellers, the movie. Communication for All, Communication First, S2C Las Vegas, Autism Level Up, Leo in Bloom podcast, Neuropride Island YouTube with AAC videos, Communication for Education, Reach Every Voice, Reach Out ASC, Autism, ADHD and PD support, and the Speech Den. So there's a wealth of links and information out there, to further explore. And it's good to see Laura sharing that, because it's worthwhile, and it's something that we could possibly link into as well as Autistic Radio.
Yeah, I think you're right, Harry. If we could somehow link in to the people who don't use their voice, because despite this being radio, we can still take what people want to express and interpret it out there. And for the people who are messaging over from LinkedIn, we're based in the United Kingdom, but anybody is welcome to join what we do. So if you find our website, you'll be able to do that, LinkedIn user.
Harry, were you reciting that list from the Substack link?
Yes, I was. I was just adding information to the discussion.
Were you saying you recognise some of the mentioned names?
Yes, one or two, because we've actually done podcast discussions on this issue, on this topic. And one of our former podcast, Liz, who used to be on the Autistic Radio with us, used to work along with us, was part of one of them and did share quite a lot from, different events and different discussions that they shared. But I've also seen other names that I've always looked to share as much as possible. But the thing about sharing on Facebook, it's everything's, I try and keep things about an hour apart, so it's not too much information at once. And it's instant, so sometimes you just miss things. So it's good to have this list that maybe I could, quieter times, write down a list to add one of these, just see what they share and just share it on Autistic Radio. And just to link in with them, like the organisation, they like us, and it gets communication going. And what Jules says as well is, and as people know, you don't need to talk to communicate with Autistic Radio. People choose to do things in text, either through StreamYard or through Podbean. So we've got that alternative sort of communication tool anyway that's more inclusive than others maybe. So it's just something I was thinking about, just something I thought was worth sharing and worth exploring. The next post is from Autism Discovery, an educational consultant, an autism specialist mentoring all autistic people and offering autism specialist mentoring all autistic people and offering guided self-assessment for adults. And what they've shared is a picture of escalators. And what it says is, going up the down escalator, could look a lot of ways for neurodivergent people. Quieting our voices, humbling our gifts, deferring to those who have power or influence that we don't have. Not because we are intimidated, but because sometimes changing at least some of what is so wrong can seem better than doing nothing. We have insights, we have energy, we have drive, and we are willing to work hard to contribute to needed change. But when we are not heard or even listened to, that can be very hard to sit with. It can, in time, become soul crushing. When, worse, we also not treated with respect or camaraderie because we are seen as different, or are actually openly treated with disrespect and a lack of care, then that can become pretty much unbearable. Too many of us know those realities and those results. Because our brains are wired differently, our needs in order to succeed, flourish and contribute best are different too. Unaware of my neurodivergence for so long, like so many others, I did what I could to survive under suffocating circumstances. Now, instead, many of us are rising and finding ways to put our energies to use for the good of each other and the good for all. We have so much to say, and we are not invested for personal gain. We strive to help. We strive to help others. We stand to help the world. Help us along, give us a chance, give supporting someone different a try. I think you will be both happy and grateful that you did. What's people's thoughts on that?
I think this is quite positive, and I think I needed to hear this because recently I've been getting a wee bit cynical about what I see as like the grift or the business model of autism discussions in online. It was just a feeling I was getting sometimes that it's like almost a job for some people, which is fair enough because you're, giving out your experience as a mutual aid. But sometimes I just got that feeling, and it's good to hear somebody say the things that are positive here. Reflecting on that, not knowing for so long, and then being able to access that in a positive light. Yeah, so good stuff from that point of view.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean about that, Ray. There are people who have now managed to make themselves a consultancy or a small business, and I feel as though I get a bit too much from them in my feed. I think I get a bit too much of their advertisements, basically. But in the end, if they are the alternative to the other people that are making money out of us, I prefer them. I would prefer the people who are making this a career and a business and a way of concentrating on it and making a livelihood at the same time as doing something good. I prefer them to be neurodivergent people, because before we've just been exploited. I know what you mean. When money gets into things, it tends to corrupt it. But I just want to say I trust these people more than I trust the other people out there.
Point taken.
And I also get really frustrated when anything that is online costs money to enter. I think they should be making their money from government contracts and from the taxpayer and from businesses. But the things that they put online to give us information as late diagnosed people, I feel as though that is exploiting us, even if it's No, I just think it is. I think the business model they should have is free information and then another version of getting the money somewhere else.
Is that not a reflection on the UK having kind of free services in healthcare, as opposed to, say, America and other countries like Ireland, say, and maybe Australia, I don't know them all, but where everybody has to pay for these services. So anybody employed in them or working with them has got to support themselves financially somehow, so they feel pressurised into asking for fees.
Yeah, and there's an extremely good point being made by a LinkedIn user here. I'm on a mobile phone, so I can't actually reply to it. Even for college graduates, college educated, neurodiverse individuals, the unemployment rate is extremely high. We tend to make a career to help others and ourselves, but it is also extremely difficult to maintain work for many of us. So that's a really clear example.
So the information we get globally is differing, coming from different countries and different sets of values. We have to bear that in mind and balance it all out.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail there. Different systems.
The next post is from Spectrum Sloth, who shared this from a group, and they don't know who to credit for this post, but they would want someone to say it so they can credit them. And it's basically, they say this has made them laugh, and it's because it's about stereotypes basically. And what the picture is showing is this is what autism looks like to people who aren't autistic. And it shows you the character from, is it The Big Bang Theory, I think? And it's also showing Rain Man, the film. And then they say, this is what lions look like to people who have never seen a real lion. And it shows a kind of bad sort of kind of picture of what lions actually look like. And what the message is, learn about autism by listening to autistic people. And that's a kind of message that we, repeat again and again. Is autistic person is the best person to talk about autism at a level.
I'm tempted to ask,
I can
what is
remember the
this?
post. I can bring it to mind, and I remember it feeling, chip on our shoulder sometimes.
Raymond?
It's just the word listening here, this listening experience. How does that happen? What spaces are we in where, autistic people are being listened to, and by whom? What is that relationship? Do we expect, like in our everyday lives, to be listened to as autistic people? Some people don't even or are not open about their autism. So that might be a difficult one for them to explain. And it's only when, using services, say, or some other relevant situation, they would discuss it. So maybe in the context of advocacy, yes. So I'm just curious as to the space where this listening is operating.
I think it's just people that are generally interested. I don't think autistic people need to justify themselves by talking about their autism all the time, their existence all the time. I think it's if someone is interested and wants to do the best thing in terms of relations to understanding what autism is, listen to someone who is autistic is the best way forward, and not just looking at research by medical professions and social work and things like that. People so-called experts.
I want to express what LinkedIn user is saying here. They say, I'm very open about my autism. I work a regular job and serve on several boards. I don't often get listened to, but I continue talking. And I think that's crucial, isn't it? It's when we fail to continue, it's when we allow them to just ignore us. If we stop being in the spaces where we can be in the spaces, then we're giving in. They also say sometimes a person will approach who is neurodiverse, and I help them to navigate our situation so that they can function better. Well, you know, that's a person out there who's saying that they're trying their best to do these things. I'm trying to remember my phrase from the talk that I'm going to give to the ABA lot down in London at their conference, and it's something like, if somebody says to me, I don't look autistic, I will have a wry smile and take the opportunity to discuss it. And what I see online is people having smart-ass comments about what they might say when somebody says that they don't feel that they're autistic or whatever, as though they're denying their existence. But the reality is that neurotypical people use language in very inaccurate ways all the time. So we might be misunderstanding their intention.
Just to say that I'm finding it difficult to know when someone wants to talk at the moment because I can't see the mute and unmute signs on the screen. So sometimes people can talk over each other without intending to. Not that anybody intends to. It's just to let you know, Jules.
The masking thing is acting neurotypical in neurotypical environments, isn't it? And if we're in neurotypical environments, I'm not saying we should acquiesce to it, but yeah, it's an odd one there, how I think about that. And it's possibly still a remnant of masking, which is like you would fawn or conform because it's their game and it's their situation. But if it's a common experience and needs common understanding, and of course they've got to listen, especially if you assert the identity of autism.
The next post is from Dogs for Autism, which is a charity organisation, non-profit organisation, animals. Our vision is to train and provide assistance dogs at no charge to autistic people of any age, anywhere in the UK, who will significantly benefit. Enriching lives, expanding horizons. And they've shared a quote from Grace. Maka will alert me to my anxiety and high heart rate and help me calm down. He is my constant, my soulmate, my best friend. This beautiful quote from Grace highlights the life-changing bond between our assistance dogs and their partners. Dogs like Maka are more than companions. They provide critical support, helping individuals navigate challenges and enriching lives every day. At Dogs for Autism, we're proud to see how these incredible partnerships transform lives. What's other thoughts?
I can't talk about this too much because I'll start to cry, but I can really relate to this. I got a dog last summer and it's been quite life-changing.
Thanks, Jules, for your message. Don't worry about it. It was just something I wanted to raise, so just to make you aware. But there's no problem, and there's no need to be fixed. I'm sure I can cope with the rest of the broadcast. So, just talking about the screen, it's changed a little bit. There's no indication of anybody muting or unmuting. But I think, so far we're having a conversation. It's just like giving a kind of breather and just kind of. And if people talk over each other, it can be resolved. We've done it before. Anyway, back to the topic. I don't have a dog myself, but I appreciate how a dog, especially a special kind of dog, trained, like for dogs for autism, can be very beneficial for people. And I've shared a few quotes and stories. And it's always brings a tear to your eye, in a good way, because of the positive impact it has on so many people, and who feel that if they didn't have a dog, an assistance dog, their lives would be so much more difficult and there'd be a lot of things that they can't do. So it's nice to share these sort of things, and it's great that these services and organisations exist.
There's a few comments coming from a LinkedIn user saying smart comments do not serve us well. Some of us want to know more and others don't because they do not have a personal experience to draw from. It's mixed. The main thing for me, I don't ask for acceptance. I am here, so it's automatic that the expectation is to have room for me, and that goes for anyone. And then here we're talking about onto the dog topic. He says, they say, animals are the most beautiful and accepting creatures. There should be service animals of many species for people who may have allergies to hair and dander. I love that idea. I'm getting thinking of Philip Pullman with his everybody has a different animal. That sounds ace.
Well, that's true. I mean, not everybody can have a dog. I mean, not everybody would want to have a dog. They would want some other kind of pet that'd be sort of similar to what this is, to what an assistance dog is. I don't know how realistic or how workable that is, but it's certainly a good point.
There was a woman on the radio this week who was so into insects and exotic creatures that when her beloved stick insect died, she went to the taxidermist to try and preserve it.
There's a lady local to me who has a pet sheep who she's raised like a wee dog, and she swears it's just like the loveliest company. It's our second sheep because our first one just won her heart, I just think it's lovely. I remember I was absolutely delighted the day that she told me about it.
Yeah, there's a thing about animals and autistic people. The connection, the not feeling judged, the connection, the comforting relationship, kind of run out of words here, but you get my point. It's, a lot of people do take two animals. I don't have an animal, like a dog or a cat or anything. The only reason that I don't is not because I don't like them, it's because I'm lazy and I don't like the thought of having to clean up after them. And I think a lot of people should actually think of that as well. People that have dogs and cats who don't look after them, because it really upsets me when you see that some dogs and cats aren't looked after, and it's because the people that have them are either lazy or maybe they're just not well enough, whatever. But it's just sad to see, and that's the reason why I don't have one. But I do see how an animal can be so touching and just a great addition to your life.
Pets are a big responsibility, Harry. They're a major commitment. I was going to ask you, do your neighbours or any of your family have animals, and do you have relationships with those pets?
My neighbour's downstairs neighbour has a dog, and the other neighbour downstairs, the other side of the close, I think she has two cats. But I don't really speak to them or see them, just a hello, obviously, kind of thing. But it's nice to hear, that the dog's in and the cats and the routine that goes through, like, calling for the cats at night to come in. Sometimes it's quite late at night, but it's fine with me. But my sister has a dog, has a family dog, and it's can't remember what we call it. It's a wee dog. It's one of those wee dogs, a wee cute dog, a wee cute spoiled dog. And it's quite funny because it goes down to mum and dad's a lot because my mum and dad look after when my sister and my brother-in-law are working. And there was a couple of times where I was going to sit in a seat and it growled at me. It's like, how dare you sit there? That's my seat, sort of thing. And I found that quite amusing, but not sure how to react to it. Like, say the dog behave itself and just do what I was going to do, or just kind of be a softie towards it. It's a strange one. It's I'm just kind of pouring out memories here.
Yeah, they can be. Sorry, Nicola, you go.
I was just going to share some of the LinkedIn users' comments that are coming in too. I've never had service animals, but my best friend was a land turtle. I had him for 36 years. That's a long time. He was accepting of all family members and my friends. Everyone loved him so much. And about having pets, I think in agreement with what you were saying there, Harry, having them is a huge responsibility physically and emotionally. And then plus they have the most lovely personalities. There's so much joy. I was going to say, like when you were saying about your sister's wee dog, I found that it takes as much effort to get to know, like, and communicate with the dog and the cat as it does the people. I really think that they've got their own way of letting us know what they want.
It is an aspect of relationship, and it's also like dependence too, because I felt a similar thing, with other people's children. You don't know how to act sometimes or how to be responsible around them. And I was always like that with dogs, although I had a cat before. But in a sense, I'm one of these people where things come to me. If it's undeniable, I'm there, So someone left me a kitten, so it's like I wasn't throwing it away. So my dog came to me. She found me through her previous owner. And yeah, I just never saw myself becoming the kind of person I've been since I got her.
I love what you said at the end there. Like, I do think we become, our relationships do shape us as well. As much as we think we've got a dog to train, it's I've very much been being shaped over the last 6 months or so.
Yeah, it's the other side of the lead, which was a book I got to learn how to handle dogs when I first got her. And I laughed at the title. I am on the other end of the lead. She's taking me for a walk. But it's also like that thing where people say you end up looking like your dog, or dogs end up looking like their owners. There's some kind of symbiosis that happens.
I asked my kids if I was started, the dog and I were starting to look like each other, and they laughed and said, yeah, like, because the dog's really scruffy.
Cheeky puppies.
LinkedIn user, please free, call Jackie. So what Jackie's saying is, the amazing thing about animals, they will let you know and what they want from you, if anything. Which is very true, I'd imagine. Especially when you're eating. I've noticed that. Yeah, that's a good point. Apologies to... Oh. Jackie says, when two or more lives come together, it is a give and take. Sometimes being quiet still allow for natural connections. Yep, that's true as well. The next post is from Chloe Hayden, blogger, Autistic ADHD Boldly Me from Australia. And it's shown a picture of her being at an exhibition about dinosaurs. And what basically says is, I love being autistic. I love having special interests. Neurotypicals are missing out. What's people's thoughts on that? What stuck out to me was the special interest part. We've talked about, the identity, being autistic, etc., senses and stuff. But the special interest part is always it sticks out as well. Because in society, in general, autistic special interests to others seems something strange or negative, like an obsession, that sort of thing. Like people that have special interests about certain things, like, cars, trains, typical types of certain types of buildings, certain types of anything. My special interest as a boy, for some reason, was lampposts. Because I was fascinated how lampposts were different in different streets and in different areas, and why that is. So for many years, while other boys were interested in, football and all kinds of stuff like that, and cars, I was more interested in lampposts. And I'm not so much now, but I like kind of going back to that, because that would have been seen upon as a negative thing. Oh, that's strange, that's odd. But it wasn't really that odd, it was actually quite harmless. I didn't collect them, I didn't take them home, of course you can't, but, it's just something that fascinated me. I'm just wondering if others got something similar. Thanks, Jackie, for taking part today. and hope that you join us again. So thanks very much for your comments, and I look forward to see you join us again soon. So thank you. No, Raymond, just looking at your comments. Is it weird interest that have been referred to here, or is it just how we're interested? Yeah, as Jules is saying, I think what it is the interest is consuming. And you spend a lot of time on it, and you talk a lot about it, and maybe it's a lot you talk about in your conversation. And some people go like, oh, that's a bit too much, there's no balance there. That's why the word obsessed comes into play. And they're thinking you're too obsessed with it, then they turn it into some sort of kind of erratic condition that you have, that you must be, that a therapist must kind of take out of you. It just turns into this negative thing. And I think posts like Chloe's is just saying, look, special interests are there. I like being me. There's nothing wrong with it. And for other people out there who feel that they may feel being put down, or maybe they just feel it within themselves, there's nothing wrong with having a special interest as long as it's not hurting other people. Jules?
I'm just thinking, if we didn't have specialisms that go beyond what people think is normal, then society wouldn't have moved on. It's the neurodivergent who look into things in such depth often that it's about science. It's about all kinds of different ways of interacting with the world that's not just on the level of the mundane. If somebody has a passionate interest in something and they can hold all of that in their brain at the same time, then that's how you make innovation and breakthrough.
Yeah, it's a very good point. It's true. And it actually seems that obvious that it should need to be said, but of course it does need to be said because that's people's attitudes. Progression of society, progression of how things move forward is because people did things outside the box that's so-called obsessive, so-called not normal, even though there's no such thing as normal, but it's that word that they like to band about every now and again, which I feel just as a measurement to someone's abnormality or disability. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a lot of jobs out there. A lot of high pressure jobs that a lot of how it gets done is because of a super interest in it. It's like, it's almost even obsessive, if you want to call it that. It's intense, it's drive, it keeps you going. It's just something that you're just excited to take part in, like a puzzle, like an investigation, like research. It's just, that should not be put as a negative. And I think if you don't so-called conform to the norms, as I've just been saying, it just seems to be this sort of thing that's discouraged.
I think I remember when I was younger, way before I had any understanding of autism or myself, I used to feel really, I'd feel quite guilty for engaging in like my special interests, because like I would find a lot of comfort in sort of recataloguing this like knowledge that I had, like kind of just like writing stuff down in different ways. It just really was so soothing. But it would be like hyper focusing on tiny little details about things. And like, I knew that I was resourced by this, but I didn't understand it, and it became such a hidden thing, and I'd really worry about people finding my books, and there was nothing like shameful in it. It was just I was judging myself so harshly, and it's really nice to be at where Chloe describes in the post and have that like autistic joy in being able to engage with my special interests, and I feel like I engage with them so much more freely now. Yeah.
I suppose when I'm thinking about my interests now, I like football and I go to the football matches and things like that, and I like watching programmes and stuff. But a lot of my hobby is in being involved in community work. And a lot of the community work, which I include Autistic Radio in this, is Facebook based. It's like sharing information. And I always feel kind of excited to add more information that's going to help people. Like I do with the Facebook page, and like we're talking about now, it's just this drive, and I've hardly ever stopped. Even though during Christmas things slowed down a bit, I never stopped posting. I kind of, reduced the posting. I was actually saying to myself, right, it's Christmas time, just not because I was being hard on myself. It was just more like slow down a bit so I don't burn out, because I did feel, and I feel this every year, as the year comes to a close, it's like I'm feeling a bit burnt out because of all the commitments I've got myself involved in. So I need to kind of reduce that. But in the main, I enjoy what I do, the hobbies that I do, being involved in the community work, in committees. Someone come to me, I'm in the local Tenants and Residents Association, somebody comes to me with an issue, like a broken fence, and then it's resolved. And then I'm sort of determined for it to be resolved, and we'll keep getting updates and when this job to resolve this thing's going to be done, and when it's done it feels like such an achievement and such a buzz. And I think I'm kind of off tangent a bit, but basically what I'm saying is sometimes your obsessive or so-called obsessive interests and hobbies turn into a sort of job to an extent, which in many ways gets a lot of things done.
I think sometimes it's that the autistic person is the person you go to who is going to be tenacious enough to get things done, to not just pretend, to actually look at the problem all the way through in detail and make source. We're often the people you go to get something fixed or to get
The next post is from the Autistic Poet. Public figure, life on the spectrum as an autistic adult, out and about with my family, poems, thoughts and information on all aspects of autism and diagnosis. And what they've shared is an article from the BBC. Oxfordshire, 18-year wait for adult autism assessments. And what they're saying is, getting an autism diagnosis is not something you suddenly decide to do. It is usually the result of years of questioning, confusion, and upset. Diagnosis offers the hopes of finding an answer to why you feel different, to why you act and think the way you do, and to finding some support to carry on. Many people are desperate for a yes/no so that they can move forward on their journey to self-discovery. Some need the confirmation of an autistic mind to put an end to dark thoughts and pain. Adults in Oxfordshire who were referred to after July 2024 now have to wait 18 years for an assessment. This cannot be allowed to happen. These people need help, and these people need help, and for many, getting a diagnosis is the only thing they have to cling to. What's Jules' thoughts on this?
I just think that's that's such a awful choice. Oh yeah, we can give you an appointment in 18 years. That's a humongous wait. And my question that pops into my head is there must be an alternative to this.
Isn't self-diagnosis the alternative? But if you're wanting the authoritative assessment, I suppose you go for that one. If it's the BBC, it must be true then that it's 18 years, because when I had mine 2 years ago, that was a 4 or 5 year wait, which was what was promised to me back in 2018. They said it would be about 4 or 5 years, regardless of the fact that there was a pandemic. So, yeah, alternatives, it's like, must be, but I think basically it's just this privatisation of the health service again. It's like we're going to have to pay for things like this.
Yes, that's what I think it is. What I'll do is actually read the article it links to. And it's from Ethan Gudge from the BBC News. And it's from 20th of December 2024. Adults waiting an autism diagnosis may have to wait up to 18 years before being assessed. The Oxfordshire Adult Autism Diagnostic and Support Service stopped taking on new patients at the end of November due to the size of its current waiting list. In documents seen by the BBC, Oxford Adult Autism Diagnostic and Support Service has told patients that those referred after July of this year will not be assessed until 2041 at the earliest. Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire and Berkshire West Integrated Care Council, who oversee adult autism diagnoses in the county, said it was working to find a solution to the delays. Sarah's 19-year-old son was recently referred to the service, being told that their waiting list was closed. Unfortunately, we've met a bit of a dead end with the process already. As soon as it started, it stopped, she told the BBC. Sarah's son was warned by his GP that a test may take up to a year after being forwarded to an assessment service. A few days later, received a letter from the surgery to say that they've just been informed that the clinic in Oxfordshire that performs the adult autism assessments has closed their books and has such a huge backlog that it's going to take them 18 years to clear it. That's almost Sarah's son's age over again. He would be 37 by the time he could even pursue that option. Hayley from Oxford said her brother is currently on the waiting list and will be assessed in 2030, which she labelled as just nuts. That's a really long time in an adult's life who has already been struggling for many, many years to then have to wait even further. Having seen the waiting times for adults in Oxfordshire, Hayley decided to pursue a private assessment through the NHS Right to Choose policy. It enables GPs to refer patients for specialist treatment, such as an ADHD or autism assessment and an appropriate private healthcare provider. These costs are provided by the NHS. Knowledge is power, and if they're empowered with the knowledge of what they can and can't do and what's hard for them and how they can work through those challenges, that's only got to be a positive thing, she said. But Sarah questioned the policy, saying it was essentially kicking us up to a clinic we really don't know anything about. In a statement, the local care board says, as commissioners of this service for adult patients, we are aware of the organisation's situation and we are working with them to find a solution. The care board added that a demand for autism assessments in the UK has significantly increased in recent years. This rise is largely due to greater awareness and understanding of autism, leading more people to seek diagnoses. So it kind of opens up the story more. What's other people's thoughts on that?
It's kind of like what I thought, Harry. Aye, it's Oxford based, and I noticed that Robbie Prosser made a comment on the post you've got on Facebook. Is he from Cambridge or Oxford? I can't remember. It's specific to that area, but I imagine it's not uncommon, given backlogs. Although Scotland is slightly different from England regarding health services, but no great advantage. It might be getting to a point where they're trying to disadvantage the autistic community. I don't know. I don't want to go down any paranoid loops. But it does feel sometimes that getting your assessment and getting that empowerment and getting that knowledge might be something they want to avoid. What society may want to avoid people obtaining. A bit like, closing down spaces for it behaving in certain ways.
It's all about money. It's all about lack of funding. So services are reduced, less people are working in these services and things are reduced and the service becomes, I don't want to say inferior, but what happens is it doesn't become as effective as it once was. And if something is reduced and less people are working there and less work has been done on it, it would obviously show you that it's only natural that it's going to struggle. But the 18 years is ridiculous. I mean, I have heard about someone that I know that is going for an assessment in Glasgow for autism assessment, and it was told it would take a considerable amount of time. It could take 1 to 2 years, and the reason for that is because the priority is children at the early years. So adults are kind of pushed to the back of the queue as not being priority because of looking at the children. And it's all down to cost as well, and as I've said before, I mean, I thought 1 or 2 years was bad enough, but when someone says 18 years, I mean, as a headline thing, it's a headline that you can throw out. But it does actually have quotes saying it could take up to 2041 until an assessment can be done, and that's just the assessment starting. I mean, so it is. It's I don't know. It's a frustrating one, but it's not uncommon because a lot of services in the UK are struggling due to, and including the NHS, are struggling due to lack of finance, lack of funding. And there is always an option, which doesn't always get funded by the NHS, to go down the private route, which I'm aware can cost thousands and thousands of pounds. I don't have an exact figure, but it's very expensive.
You think it's very expensive for an autism assessment privately? I know people who are waiting for things like hip replacements and even, cataract surgery, which they decide to pay for themselves. It's like, okay, there goes 4-6 grand, if not more. Even investigative tests can cost a lot of money if you go private. Just look at veterinary costs, sometimes so insurance. So here we are in the land of commerce. But I was wondering what the cost is to actually have it done on the NHS. Where the patient is not paying. Is it the fact that we have to pay for professionals who are professionally trained to give this assessment, and the services who are under such pressure, to offer us that time and space to have it done when other things are needing done that might be more of a priority? Who knows?
What if, as we, I see so much building happening within the autistic community, and so much, almost like little mycelial connections being made. If we can show that that knowledge is not that the knowledge of oneself, one's own autism, and even more like a bit of understanding about our sensory systems, how they work unique to us, that can contribute to us raising, maybe we've talked about how low the employment rate is amongst autistic people. If that shifts with knowledge is power, would that be more of an argument to fund these services? Because at the moment, I think a lot of specialists are focused on children, because the schools are looking for ways to desperate families are desperate. Schools, the resources are going towards kids, and there's just not enough being put to identifying this, and also it might be a temporary funding need, because if we found out that self-knowledge helped there, but then it's bringing up lots. I'm going into so many spirals about assimilation now as well in my head, but interesting topics.
It is. You can sort of see why they would focus on kids and stuff, because these are economic factors. The family's got to go out to work. The kids have got to go to school. So you've got to, handle the behaviour somehow. Whereas for adults, I imagine, not so much a imperative.
Everything's about economics. It's all about the cost of these things. Then they will have to provide you with services, and that goes for the children all the way down. There has to be a complete change, because it's a mess. People are not going to pay for the way that it's being done at the moment in the numbers that are now being realised as autistic.
It almost reminds me of that thing that happened in the 60s with LSD. And if I may mention this, which is like the acid tests. It was like these non-professional people who decided to distribute it amongst people in public settings and rituals. And so I was curious when I put that in the text there, like, can autistic people give autism assessments to each other?
Well, everybody who's autistic's different. I mean, see, it's a thing about assessments. There's been other things. There's been people I've spoken to, and it's like an actual conversation and some questions and all that, and then I could give my expertise on my living, my experience, my life, and that has helped them move forward to actually seeking an assessment. Can autistic people give autistic assessments? They probably can, but you can't just do it. You need to be qualified to do it. I know it sounds quite brutal, but that is the case. And I think that there is some services out there, private ones, that is autistic people that is providing this service.
would you say, Harry?
Sorry, Raymond? Yeah, we've been having some sound issues in this particular broadcast, but don't worry about it. I mean, speak when you can. You're certainly off mute. Oh, yeah, getting back in again, that does usually do the trick. I think I may be wrong here, but I can't remember his name, so I can't say. Jordan James, who does the neurodiversity, he does his own podcast and he's also a photographer. I'm sure that he offers that alternative service, and that's where the figures, the money, the costs in my head are coming from. I don't know, I can't remember the exact figure, but it is quite costly. But I was just basically answering the question that Raymond was bringing up. I'm going to move on to a final post just before we finish tonight, and it's from Awesome Training, who are an autistic-led, neuro-affirming training, mentoring, consultancy and support for people ready to make the world a better place for autistics. And it says, you can imagine my face when people ask, do you have a course on autism? Yes. Yes, indeed we do. 67 now to be exact. There is so much to share and learn about our community, and we won't stop at 67 either. Whether you're interested in spending 2 hours learning about a specific topic, or if you want to do an in-depth 30 to 60 hours CPD, we have you covered. What's other thoughts on this?
I love seeing autistic-led neuroaffirming training, and that sounds so good. And as a parent, I'm seeing this. I'm seeing the results of autistic people doing these sorts of things. My kids' class teacher was sharing that they just been part of a really great training that's been developed by autistic people that was like a really collaborative one. And when she was talking about it, I could hear she was like buzzing. She was feeling like she's a teacher who's kind of instinctively kind of got it and been frustrated about how does she communicate this to the teachers who are not seeing things in that autism affirming way. I think this training's they were able to kind of work with give case examples and really make it tangible to the teachers. So yes, I think our voices really do matter.
Thanks, Nicola. That kind of ends tonight's broadcast on a really positive note. So thanks again. And thanks everyone who's taken part tonight, either through audio or through Podbean or through LinkedIn, through text. It's much appreciated. And also, again, much thanks to the people who share the posts that we talk about in this particular broadcast. It's much appreciated that these things exist, and it brings up it it just brings so much conversation for something that some people may think is limited, but it's not limited at all. It's such a large scope, and it's great that we managed to find so many different things and so many different people who share these things all globally. So this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 19th of January, 5:55, every Sunday on Podbeam and Facebook Live. And I look forward to next week and doing much the same and see what we've got in store next week. So thank you again, and now I'll hand over to Jules.
Well, I'm not really in a position to make a recording here because I've just got on the train, so I'm just going to turn it off now.